Thanks for joining me today. I'm excited to share with you the best ways to see all the highlights on Vancouver Island in Canada. This trip will include spending time to hike along the southern coast, enjoy the beaches of the Pacific Rim National Park Preserve, visit the Gulf Islands, and explore the main city of Victoria. To get a good feel for the island, you're going to need a little over a week. I had an opportunity to recently visit, and while it's not far from my home in Washington State, it's a really unique experience and a great way to get out and explore nature. Whether it was rugged coastlines, forests, sandy beaches, or wildlife, you won't be disappointed. The island also offers some great cities and historical sites. Stick around to the end. I'm going to share a great roadside attraction that not only allows you to grab some food, but also experience some hooved friends right above you. So with that, let's go ahead and get to it. First off, how to get there. Vancouver Island is the largest island on the west coast and the 43rd largest island in the world. The provincial capital of British Columbia is Victoria, and that's likely where your trip will start. Direct flights can be had from most major Canadian cities, as well as Seattle for those connecting from the United States. If you're already in downtown Seattle or Vancouver, you can also book a seaplane, which is an experience in its own right. For those already in or visiting the Pacific Northwest, there's a number of ferry options. Note that for this trip, you're going to need a car, and that if you're traveling from Seattle and taking the ferry, it's walk-on passengers only. Rather than spending time in Victoria upon arrival, I recommend hitting the road first. On the first day, I suggest stopping to tour the Fort Rod Hill and Fiskard Lighthouse National Historic Sites, just to the west of the city. This is a former military fortress and features the oldest lighthouse on Canada's west coast. From there, it's a quick drive to Hatley Castle. This mansion from the early 1900s features a beautiful formal garden that is free to tour. If you're thinking it looks familiar, you might recognize it from the X-Men movies. Depending on how much time you have left, consider taking a detour to explore the Souk potholes. The park features a number of tranquil waterfalls, natural swimming pools, and interesting rock formations that are definitely worth exploring. I stayed at the Prestige Oceanfront Hotel and would highly recommend it. It is a beautiful building with incredible views. In the peak season, you should also plan ahead with making dinner reservations. I had a great experience at the Wild Mountain Restaurant just down the street. Your first day will involve 2 hikes along the southern coast. One along the beach, the other through a forest. Your first stop is the trailhead for Mystic Beach, which is about a 30-minute drive from Souk. From there, it's about another 30 minutes to get to the beach. It isn't a difficult hike, but you'll need to watch your step. You'll also cross a suspension bridge. Once you're on the beach, you'll take a brief walk to the left side. There you'll find one of the world's rarest features, a tidal waterfall, where water actually cascades directly onto a beach. I do recommend checking the charts ahead of time to avoid the high tide. Once you're back on the road, it's another 30 minutes to Sombrio Beach. While it's a short walk from the beach to the parking lot, you'll need to go to the left and walk along the beach for about a half a mile. You'll know that you arrived to your destination when you see a stream seeping into the beach sand. It'll lead you to a mossy, tunnel-like formation that features a waterfall inside. If you're feeling ambitious, you can continue down the trail a little bit further to find another tidal fall. After exploring these beaches, it'll likely be later in the day. At this point, I elected to continue on to Cowichan Bay. This drive really makes you feel like you're away from it all. It is remote and features views of the Olympic Mountains across the strait in Washington State, vast forests, and the island's largest lake. I stayed at the Oceanfront Suites at Cowichan Bay. This was close to all the piers, which I was able to explore around sunset for pictures. As you stroll about the piers, be on the lookout for seals and otters. Note that in the summer, the sunset can be as late as 9:30 and makes for a great after-dinner activity. For the next day, I recommend signing up for an adventure. I ended up doing a zipline and ropes course at a location called Wild Play. This is a large park with great river and forest views that feature a number of attractions, including a bungee jump. I even survived the extreme challenge. Other options include floating the river. One outfitter is Lake Cowichan River Tubing. Lake Sprout also offers great fishing options. Another thing you could consider doing is Qualicum Beach. It's a popular vacation town that offers a number of provincial parks, warm beaches, and a charming downtown. In the later part of the day, you'll also want to make sure that you stop off at Cathedral Grove. This park features an old-growth forest of Douglas firs, the world's third largest tree. If you end up having a busy day, I suggest staying overnight in Port Alberni. A night here will be much more affordable than going all the way onto the western coast. For dinner, I ended up at the Fish and Duck Pub. This was a great casual spot with a deck that offered great lake views. Your drive to the western Pacific coast is a scenic one. You'll cross over the Mackenzie Range and drive along Kennedy Lake. Upon arriving, stop off at the Welcome Center to secure your park pass for the Pacific Rim National Park Reserve. I suggest booking 2 nights in either Tofino or Ucluelet. These are not large towns, so plan to book months in advance if you can. These are the only 2 notable cities on the west coast of the island and are separated by a 30-minute drive with beaches running along most of the length. I decided to stay at an Airbnb in Tofino due to the greater number of amenities and proximity to tour operators. Once you're on the west coast, it's time to figure out how you'll want to prioritize your time. If you enjoy surfing, you're in luck. Tofino features a number of large beaches and is known as Canada's surfing capital. While I certainly took time on the beach, I also prioritized taking tours and hiking. For my first day, I booked a whale watching tour with West Coast Aquatic Safaris. It was well run and afforded me an opportunity to experience taking in all the islands and the fjord-like mountains jutting into the ocean. While you're likely to see whales, they're not guaranteed. I didn't have any luck. I only saw a puffin and a sea otter. I did, however, make up for this with seeing one on the ferry ride back to Washington State. You never know. Other well-regarded tour options include looking for bears along the coastlines or visiting a hot springs. Consider taking some medication to mitigate the impacts of seasickness if you're not accustomed to it. Seaplane operators also are available for whale watching or flying over the high mountain glaciers. Doing sunset at Cox Bay Beach is a must. There's a paid parking lot to the right of the entry point with a trail that will take you to the beach. For dinner, I suggest you make a reservation for the Wolf and Frog restaurant. It's a great option in town. For your next day, start at the south side in Ucluelet. Take about an hour to do the complete lighthouse loop. It's about a 2.6 kilometer hike and is of easy grade and features great views of the rugged coast and interesting trees. Plan to take the lunch in Ucluelet afterwards and explore the Pacific Rim National Park Preserve. Just north a little ways on the Wakananish Beach, you'll find naturally occurring sand dunes. Just watch out for the unexploded ordnances. To the north, this beach connects with Long Beach, making it the largest on the island, stretching nearly 10 kilometers. To the south, there's a number of tide pools to explore. If you're lucky, you'll find starfish, sea anemones, fish, and crabs. Plus, there's also a fun totem pole to check out. You can also visit a nearby bog with an elevated trail. Once you're back on the road, make sure to stop off at the Rainforest Trail. There are 2 1-kilometer loops on each side of the highway. There are only a handful of regions in the world with a temperate rainforest climate. This trail is a great example of this type of environment. The trail of boardwalks will allow you to explore this unique forest of cedar and hemlock trees hung with mosses. For the balance of the day, head out to Tonquin Beach, which is just down the way from Tofino. It's a great place to relax and explore. After 2 days, it's time to start heading back. While returning, I recommend taking an excursion to visit one of the Gulf Islands. Salt Spring Island is the largest and most accessible. It'll take a little over 3 hours to get to Crofton to take the ferry. Check the timetables in advance. During peak season, it is advisable to show up well ahead of time to make sure you're able to get a spot, as you're unable to reserve tickets in advance. While visiting the island, I recommend finding a unique place to stay, such as a beach or farmhouse. I found an incredible Airbnb hanging over a cliff, which offered incredible views and was perfect for the sunset. I also suggest looking at the Salt Springs Studio tour map to plan out some local businesses to visit. Examples include artisans, farms, and tasting rooms. My favorite attraction was visiting a goat farm to sample some of the local cheese. If you're feeling ambitious, consider a hike to the highest point of the island, Mount Maxwell, for an impressive view of the surrounding islands. There is an option to drive, but only undertake it with a 4x4 under favorable weather conditions. After spending a relaxing 2 nights on the island, take the morning ferry back to Victoria. Note that if your travel plans include returning to Vancouver by ferry, I suggest starting your itinerary in Victoria. This will allow you to return to Vancouver from Salt Springs Island directly. For all others, once you take the ferry south, you should head directly to Butchart Gardens. These date back to 1903 and have over 1 million visitors each year. The grounds are meticulously maintained and feature rose gardens, fountains, and a Japanese garden. Make sure to be on the lookout for the lone coastal redwood in the park. While in Victoria, you should head down to the Parliament Building. You'll need to show up at the front of the building to secure your free tickets for a time later in the day. The tours are really well done and will share information about the province's close relationship with the British monarchy, ongoing reconciliation with the First Nations people, and the system of government. While I waited for my reservation, I explored the surrounding grounds to admire the gardens, the waterfront views, and the building's unique domed neo-Baroque and Romanesque revival architecture. Across the way, you'll find the Empress Hotel, which offers a noon tea experience if that's something that you would be interested in. In terms of a walking tour for the city, I'd suggest heading up along Government Street. This is the main downtown pedestrian corridor. Take this to the Lower Johnson Street or Lojo area. You'll find a unique and concentrated eclectic shopping district. The 1-block stretch is marked with highly colored Victorian-style buildings flanked on either side of the street. Finally, head another further 2 blocks north to tour the Chinatown district. This is the second oldest in North America and well preserved. Make sure to check out the alleyways and their decorations. If you have extra time, consider visiting some of the city's parks. This includes the Fisherman's Wharf at the far western side of the waterfront. There, visitors can see seals and other marine life along a quaint floating pier with food kiosks and shops. Not far from downtown, you'll also find Beacon Hill Park, which also features the world's largest freestanding totem pole. The trip that I've covered today is really only geared towards travel in the warmer months, between May and early October. During this time, you can expect comfortable weather with limited rain. The summer is also your best chance for clear skies. If you have more time, consider chartering a sailboat, particularly for an extended experience in the Gulf Islands. I'd recommend a multi-day tour to adequately explore the different islands and coves. You could also extend your trip further north to more remote sides of the island where you'll find large wilderness areas that offer great camping experiences. As for the budget, once you've arrived, I would recommend planning to spend around $3,000 to $5,400 US for 3-star to 4-star level accommodations and full-service dining options for 2 people. As promised, here's a great place to stop along your drive. In Coombs, about halfway between Victoria and Tofino, you'll find the Old Country Markets. What makes it unique is that it has a grass-top roof, famous for its goats. In addition to being a fun attraction, the store offers excellent food options and souvenirs. In terms of where to go next, Vancouver is a great starting point to explore what else British Columbia has to offer. You may also want to consider visiting Washington State. You're only a quick ferry ride to the Olympic Peninsula, the San Juan Islands, or Seattle. Make sure to check out my other travel videos for more travel ideas. If you found this video to be helpful, please like and subscribe. I love your comments, and if this wasn't the perfect trip for you, stay tuned. Hopefully the next one will be.